Please confirm you can hear me and that you can see my screen.
Yes, your screen is visible and you're audible.
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us once again on another amazing test drive session for this month, the month of March. Is the last weekend in March already. And then we're going to just end up in an amazing test drive session like we always do. It's a pleasure to have you here again for this edition. And as usual, you can look forward to an exciting one. So I'm just going to go ahead right away. You know what test drive is for. We talk about everything software test automation, bring guest speakers from all over to talk about different topics. And then we also enjoy ourselves, network, and play some games, win cash prizes, and all of that. Today we'll be taking a keynote session from our guest speaker, and then we're going to go into the Q&A session where you get to ask questions to our guest speaker and also get answers to those questions. And then afterwards, as usual, we'll go into the games session where everybody gets to flex their muscles and win some prizes. So who is ready? Great. Okay, so just before we go ahead, nice, welcome. So who's on social media? We're on social media too, so you want to take just a minute or two of your time. I'm going to just pause for a minute or two, so to allow you to, if you have to follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter, X, by the way, you can do that now at Scandium. That is our handle. So please do well to follow us so you can get access to what's up in tests automation with Scandium and even other things. So who's done with that yet? Okay, we have some 20 more seconds to go. Yeah, Aziz Esther, thank you very much for doing that. Do we have anybody else that's done that? We've got some 10 more seconds. Chances I can drop links in the chat box. Great. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Oladeji Adeshina. Thank you, Oluwasegun. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so we do not take too much time. We're just going to go ahead. I can see lots of interesting names and interesting faces here today. We're just going to go ahead right now into the actual session. We'll take our guest speaker, and we're talking about API testing today, best practices, common challenges, and solution. and that would be given to us by no other person Udeme. Udeme is a senior QA engineer at InterSwitch. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome by doing some round of applause. You can use the emojis to do that. Thank you. So I'm going to hand off to her right now to take this session from here. Udeme, are you with us?
Yeah, I am. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Please confirm you can hear
Good
me.
morning. It's a pleasure to hear from you.
All right, all right. Good morning, everyone. I guess the introductions have been done already. My name is Udeme Jalekun. I'm a software quality assurance engineer at InterSwitch. Just to get a feel of the pulse of everyone on the call, I'll just be doing a quick check to know the category of people on the call so that I'm sure the course of the presentation is broken down to details and everyone leaves learning a thing or two. So if you're new to software testing, this is your first interaction with the community of software testers or with the name or anything that has to do with software testing. If this is your first interaction, can you like raise your hand? Use an emoji. All right, this is Esther. Teosi Oladimeji. All right, and Shekita. Thank you. Thanks so much, Akudo. All right, so we'll be using you guys as the basis for the presentation. Reason is I would love everyone to learn. That is, people who are just hearing about software testing and it's appealing to them and they want to get to know what more about it, you guys would live with something. Then are there any junior QAs or QAs who have software testers that have been in the game for say a year, less than a year, 2 years, under 2 years? Okay, Samuel. All right, great. That's great. Ugochukwu Olashupo. All right, that's great. Super. All right, so there's a bit of Samuel. All right, thanks. There's a bit of learnings for everyone. And I guess anyone above 2, 3 years, you guys are Oga, yeah, Agba in the game. All right, so everyone will be living with something. Thanks to everyone who has raised their hands. You can put your hands down. Testing. We'll be speaking to best practices in API testing and all of that. I know for a group of people who raised their hands earlier on, this is probably your first interaction with, or the first time you're hearing about APIs, right? So don't worry, we'll break it down as in as much details as possible. So please confirm you can see my screen. Sorry, I'm not looking at the screen now, so it would be great if you can unmute.
We can see your screen, ma'am.
Yeah, we are good.
Great.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
All right, thanks. So we'll be going right into it. I know I have under an hour to do this outside of the games and other things. So Jafar, can I confirm? Do I have like up to 40 minutes? Hello.
You have 35 minutes actually.
All right, great. So I'll just go right into it. So a brief we'll be looking at APIs, right? And I'll share a brief story. I remember when I was transitioning into quality assurance, one of the, if not the most popular term I heard at that time, was APIs. Like there was no software testing blog, article, resource that you were going to read at the time that I read at that time that didn't have APIs pop up somewhere. And then I was still in customer service. I was still trying to learn and pitch my proposal to say I want to my then organization, saying I want to transition. I was still trying to learn some things so that I can boldly go and make the claim that I want to switch, right? So I one morning I was on my way to work and I was like, this API I'm seeing everywhere. What the hell is API? Right. And I remember I was taking a cab from Ikeja. I was working at Airport Road then. So between the cab at Ikeja to airport was when I read about APIs. And what I actually learned that day is what stuck with me to today. And the analogy the blog I was reading at the time used was this popular analogy of the restaurant. So in a restaurant, you would have three major stakeholders, right? There's the customer who brings in the money, who wants to who orders for the service, right? Who is hungry and wants a meal and wants a service. And then there's the waiter who attends to, this is a standard restaurant, right? Then there's a waiter who comes to attend to the customer, who takes your order. That's the second stakeholder. And then there's the chef, the guy in the kitchen, in the hot place where there are all the ingredients, where there's the stove, there's the cooker, and where he does the magic and produces the food. So these were the three major stakeholders that are involved in the process, and I read in the blog, and I'll be sharing that with us. I'm very sure those who are not new to software testing already know this analogy, but for those who are new, yeah, let's just read through. So what are APIs? APIs are application programming interface. Forget the big grammar, right? We'll go into details. Every mobile device, every web device, every application or software you interact with is an application, right? So an API is an application programming interface, a surface or a platform that allows you to interact within an application. So there are web services, services available over the web that are usually between a client and a server. So imagine two people trying to interact with each other, right? The medium through which that interaction happens, person A speaks, and something has to happen for person B to hear what person A said, right? Then person B, after hearing and understanding what person A has said, can then give a response. So if person A says, "How are you?" and person B has to hear the communication from person A, right? He needs to have heard the question, "How are you?" processed it, then give a convenient response. "I am fine. And you?" That's that interaction, basically, in the scheme of things, is what API is involved in. API is that medium of interaction between the client. Think of person A as the client and think of person B as a server. Interactions between a client and a server. So the interaction is in the form of a request and a response. So person A said, "How are you?" That is a request. The request is carried by the API. The API in this case is the messenger, is the wait. Okay, there's a hand up. Okay, sorry. I heard something. All right, so let's use the restaurant scenario now. We said is interactions between two principal things, a client and a server. So the client in this case is the customer who has a meal, who is hungry and wants to request or order for a meal, right? So the customer enters the restaurant, sits on a table, looks through the menu, and then has seen what she is interested in buying. The waiter comes to take the order. The waiter in this case is the API, the messenger that picks the request from the customer, takes it to the chef, who is the server, who has the food, who has all the responses and all the things that the client or customer needs, right? The waiter takes that request to the chef and says, "Oh, table 75 wants fried rice and chicken with plantain," right? Chef gathers, gets that ready, places it on a plate and hands it over to the waiter. The waiter takes that order, the prepared meal, So when it was coming from the customer, it was called a request. Customer said, I want this. That's a request. When the chef served the request and gave it to the waiter, the waiter is taking the response back to the customer. So customer, chef, waiter in between, acting as the messenger, carrying request, bringing response, taking the customer's order, returning the the finished meal for the customer to consume. Um, so yes, that's principally high level is how API works. API in this case is the waiter. What's the API's job? To receive the meals, to receive the requests that are coming from the client or multiple clients in that case, and then take it to the repository of the data where that data source for the request is hosted, and then return the response back to the customer through the same waiter. I hope with this analogy, I know I don't have a ton of time. So I hope everyone understands that. So this slide basically shows that interaction between a client and a server. The client in the previous scenario is a customer, the server is the chef. The order is the request, the finished meal is the response. So this interaction is done and powered by APIs. So APIs are messengers that help to convey requests from the client to the server and vice versa. They are the errand boys, if permit me to use that. So the client sends a request to the server. The client follows the API documentation to format the request in a way that the server understands. So there are certain protocols, there are certain principles. For those who have been software testing, you will hear things like principles, protocols, processes, all those P's. We do a lot of it in software testing. So for those who are willing to join us, you're welcome on board. We are standard following people. We follow standards. So for not everybody, not every customer can make a request to the chef. Not all clients can make a request and the server would accept that request. There are certain protocols that must happen for a server to recognize a client and then grant the request from that client. Those things are called protocols. We'll not be looking into them in details, but just know that not anybody can just make a request and not everyone will get a response, right? The desired response. So servers authenticate the client and confirms that the client has the right to make that request. The server also receives the request, processes it internally, and then sends a response back to the client. So these are things that I had previously explained. Yeah, so just to be sure we understand, for those who are new to software testing, please just indicate with a smiley or an emoji to say you're sure you're following, right? Up until this time. Great. Thanks, Esther. Thank you, Elijah. All right. Thanks a lot. So let's move on now to components of an API. Principally, there is the request and the response. I know you've heard that. That's the meal order, my order, and then the order being served, request and response. So principally in APIs, we have the URL. So normally when you want to go to a website, let's take Facebook, for example, there's a HTTPS, the column, the /, then the URL, facebook.com, right? That's the URL for those who are new to all of this. That's a URL. An API consists of a URL. The full URL would contain a base URL, meaning the domain for which you are going to, and the endpoint. So if you are going to Facebook, you just need to type facebook.com in your browser and it resolves the base URL for Facebook. It will take you to the landing page, the page where you can see sign up or you can see login. So that's the base URL. When you then click on the login button, I don't know, for those who are new to all of this, sometimes you see in the browser that there's a /login. So you see facebook.com /login. If you clicked on sign up, you see facebook.com /sign up. or something like that, right? The forward slash and the details that come off after that is the endpoint, the specific endpoint you are going to, the specific area in that domain that you want to access. So that's a summary of URL. There are, like I said, APIs have protocols by which they use to honor requests that come from different customers. So there is the HTTP method. We know the basic ones, which is get, post, put, delete, right? They are popularly called CRUD, meaning with this method you can create, that's a post. With this method you can read, which is a get, and with this method you can update. So put and patch are HTTP methods that enable you to update, then delete. Okay, so I won't be able to go into details as I'd hope because my time, I'm just checking against my time and it's fast spent. So these are the requests and these are the components of the APIs: URL, the HTTP method, the headers, the request payload, which is the body for request for certain methods. Certain methods have bodies and certain methods don't have request body. There's parameters where you can input extra information, and then there are the responses that come back. So the responses, what you'd be checking for in responses for testers in the house would be status code, would be the response body, and would be the content of the response headers. So examples of API in action: you are on Konga.com and you want to make a payment, right? You have on any e-commerce site, and then you've selected the items you want to order, and then you click on pay checkout or payout, right? Most of these sites are integrated to payment gateways and payment platforms, Paystack, Flutterwaves, etc. So for the APIs within that application to speak to another application, they do that. That's APIs in action, right? That's an example of interaction, communication between different applications. Even within the same application, there are communications that happen within the same application. So examples of APIs: a bookkeeping app that is integrated to inventory, invoices, debts, and payment modules. That's an example of APIs in action. A booking platform where you want to that is integrated to airlines. So booking.com, for example, on it you can book flights, you can book hotels, you can book car rentals. It's not that booking.com has servers that contain all these airlines. They are integrated to different third-party applications that can give them that data, right? So they go and sign a contract or sign an agreement and do an integration to a server that has all airline and flights details there. So whenever a customer on booking.com wants to request or check for cheap flights, their booking.com as an application will call the airline application that they have integrated to fetch data from them and display it to their customers on their app. So that's an example, and they do the same thing for hotels, for car rentals, and all of that, right? That's another example of APIs in action. So going into the crux of things, right? What are the challenges of APIs? The one major one, which is not really major, it's easy to solve, right, is getting the right knowledge of what they are and how do I test with them as a software tester. Um, um, I remember also when I transitioned into QA, I was giving Guru 99. Then when I had mentioned it to someone who was in QA that I'm interested, where can I learn and know more about QA? And she gave me Guru 99. And at that time, I don't know, for those who have gone to Guru 99 and studied it, can you with emoji, when your first interaction with it, do you remember how you first felt the first day you tried to sit down and study Guru 99? To me, it felt like there was always a next. And inside the first page. There are hyperlinks to like 7 or 10 other pages, and it just looked like the information was never ending. There was always something to read. Then there was a hyperlink to another place. In that place that you went to, there's another hyperlink to another place, and you're like, hey God, oh, have I not bought markets like this? That am I sure this decision is the right decision? And that was how it felt for me then also. So usually getting the right knowledge and knowing the limits to where you should start and where you should stop sometimes can be scary. So that poses challenge number one. Challenge number one is knowing the right knowledge and getting it. And that can come with training. So you can, right now in 2024 and for some years now, there is unlimited data outside. So the problem has changed from not having the right data source to now there's so much data. Which one should I focus on? So overcoming this challenge is you being disciplined enough to highlight what exactly you want to know. So I usually tell my mentees or anyone I'm privileged to speak with, have a schedule of what you want to learn, when you want to learn it, what exact resources you want to learn. Pick a 2 or 3 resources. Don't let it be too many. Stick to them. Check the resources that they are beginner friendly, they have great reviews. Do your homework to check the resources. Then pick, say, 2 or 3 max, and then set a time. I'm going to study this program for the next 3 weeks. Monday, between this time to this time. Have it detailed to the T and follow it. That's how you don't get overwhelmed with so many information out there. Because today you go to LinkedIn, you see everybody's talking about RPA, or tomorrow you check on a community and you see everyone is talking about playwrights, and you're just going to and fro with the wind of what everybody's talking about. You need to have a disciplined schedule of how you want to study, what exactly you want to study, and when. So that's for one. Expose yourself to trainings, get the right resources, be disciplined enough to learn those resources. And should you have read resource number 1 and resource number 2, you are still not clear, you can reach out for help, right? Number 2, tracking APIs. For those who are testers, I don't know how many people have joined an organization and it just seems like their API documents scattered everywhere, right? Today they say something is down and you're like, where are the APIs for this? And they go and drag it from one place. Or they say developer X is the only person that has that collection, right? And they're just API documents scattered away everywhere. And you who joined the team, there's no central place where you can go to have a feel of all the endpoints that the organization has. That's another challenge. Tracking APIs. The danger with that is if, for example, with this Japa syndrome that is happening, all the developers that supposedly had access to that API documentation leave, or maybe they leave without notice, they leave maybe under bad conditions. Some people leave an organization in a bad way and nobody can reach out to them again, right? And then all the information that person had is with the person, nobody else has it. So tracking APIs and proper inventory of APIs is another challenge. And how can we solve that? We can solve that as an engineering team by having a central work space or central inventory tool that we use to track our APIs. Why do we track it? It's not just because the APIs can get missing, but also because of versioning. So because development teams is soldier come, soldier go, people come in and go, there might be changes and different updates to the versions of the API. So the way we have versioning of your mobile app, and you can say, you go to the app and they say there's an update available, update it. The same thing happens with APIs. There can be an update in the version of an API, right? And if it's not properly tracked, it will be lost in between soldier coming and soldier going, right? So that's the second challenge and how to resolve it. The third is performance issues, bugs, This is a major problem with APIs, and that's where we as testers come in. We should be able to track the response time of our APIs, track its load time, track if these APIs can scale. That's where performance testing and performance check come in. So if you are starting a new application and you are brought in as a tester on this new application, right? And then your development team is in the authentication module. For that sprint, you are focusing on authentication, right? And you notice that sign up is fast. Sign up is, say, under 200 milliseconds. Oh, great, great. And you put an assertion there. And then you get to login, and you are seeing login is taking 1,500 milliseconds. What happened? Like, the application is not yet big. You are still in the entry point to the application, which is sign up and login. So why is it taking so much time? Here's how it can affect your application. If login is taking a whole 1,500 milliseconds or 2,000, it means that, how many of you have seen an application that you are trying to log in and the loader just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling? So I remember when I joined, some people will say, let's go and make a bar and come back. Let fire this request. I'm coming. Let me ease myself and come back. Nothing will happen. Don't worry, I won't miss anything, because they know the application is slow. And you are supposed to flag it as a tester, because they've not even integrated that endpoint to a web. The web developer has not integrated to the endpoint yet. The mobile developer has not consumed that endpoint yet. So if only API to API call is taking that long time, when mobile developer now works on it, because he will come with his own time to call, to validate the inputs, to do all of that. If you add that time to the existing API time, you can imagine how terribly slow the application would be. So that poses some challenges. If the foundation, which is the API, is faulty, the application would be a mess. It would be slow, it would be irritating, right? So there are performance issues, the challenges that come with running APIs. And how do we solve that? We solve it using caching. So if there are certain things, say BVM validation, you don't need to validate it all the time, right? Do a one-off validation, right? And save that record for that user, such that you don't need to call that validate endpoint every time the user wants to. So some data can be cached, right? Also, pagination, using pagination. How does pagination work? If you have data of 1,000 users and you want to display 1,000 users on the first page, you remember APIs are messengers, right? If you have 1,000 people that just enter into the restaurant at the same time, and you expect one waiter to fetch orders from all 1,000 people, imagine the time it would take that waiter to fetch data from all 1,000 people than to fetch data from 10 people. So pagination, you would have seen some pages and some applications where you load the application and it shows only 10 datas by default. The first page will contain 10 data. If you move to page 2, it's another 10 data. That's a way, a technique to help improve performance, because sending that messenger to take 10 orders, he would do it in a lesser time than to take 1,000 orders at the same time. I hope you understand the concept of pagination and how it helps with performance. Also, rate limiting can help. Checking the number of people that are entitled to make a request or call the chef at the same time, right? That's rate limiting, limiting the number of waiters that will be talking to the chef at the same time. So if you put a cap, say 5 waiters can speak to the chef per time, right? It's the chef will be able to process and respond quicker to each of those waiters than when 1,000 waiters are talking to him at the same time. He can't hear anything. He won't be able to attend to them effectively. So these are certain remediations that you can use for performance based issues. Others include code optimization and database optimization. Sorry, I'm running. Okay, so there's data validation as testers. These are like the foundational things we would learn in our first few years of manual testing, right? You are learning how to check for valid messages. If I input a wrong password, if I input an invalid email, if I type xyz.com, that's not an email. I should get a corresponding error that tells me that I've imputed wrong credentials, or that what I've imputed is not valid. Most of us would have worked on or used an application that when you type in something that is wrong, that field will go red. Some applications will even show the error message underneath saying this email is not valid. Please input a valid email or something like that. That's error handling, right? That's data validation. So there are a ton of things under there that we can look, but because of time, we can't go into that. Then complexity of API integrations. I remember the first year of me joining a queue, I did a lot of integrations. Now that I think of it in retrospective, I think that year was the year and that was what helped me learn very quick, because I was new to software testing. I was then put into 2 new projects, and then there were a lot of integrations for one of the projects. So it was like a training room. I know sometimes testers mention this as a challenge, that they are the only QA in the team and they don't have anyone to reach out as mentorship. I hear a lot of people use that sometimes a challenge, and yes, it's a genuine challenge, but I usually tell them see it as a blessing, because it creates an avenue for you to learn quickly. If you can solve the problem by reaching, and we have a ton of communities, one like Scandium. There are also a lot of amazing software testing communities out there that you can subscribe to, and you would meet people or being mentors gives you the avenue to have people or mentors that you can reach out to for guidance. But see it as an avenue, an opportunity to learn as quickly as possible. Right. Okay. So I diverted there, but I was exposed to a lot of third-party integrations. We're integrating to NIP, CMMS, e-bills. We're integrating to other applications within the same company and organization applications outside the company. So it was a lot of integration. So when I'm doing UAT for this integration, I see that their documentation is different from the UAT from this integration. While this one might have great documentation and is in details, this one can be so vague, right? So dealing with third-party applications, dealing with their configuration key, understanding how the developer in this application wrote their code and how it applies to you, having to reroute or remap some errors because the way it is in your app is different from the way it is in that app. And so that because the 2 apps are communicating, you don't want to be confusing your customer. So you need to remap all the responses coming from this app to suit your app so that your customers understand it. So those are some of the complexities that come with API integration. And if that API is down, say NIBS is down, all this, a lot of, I remember some months back, there was a general downtime on NIBS, and there was nothing, nobody could do anything, no transfers, all the POSs, nothing was working, right? That's a third-party integration that if it coughs, every application that is integrated to it would feel the impact of it. So that's what comes with third-party integrations. And there are so many other things that come with it, right? If a third party is not secured enough, your hackers can gain access to your data if you integrate to an unsecured third party. There are so many examples out there, but because of time, we can't go into it. So that's complexity. 6, security. And I'm going to be spending, I think, the rest of the time on it, on security. For those who are established software testers, right, who have been in the game for a while, you would know that of OWASP, and OWASP zaps as a tool and OWASP as a body. OWASP as a body that that regulates. Sorry, someone is unmuted.
As we study.
Okay, thank you. So
You think
OWASP as okay. OWASP as an organization um, that is a standard organization, right, for security, and they were known for web security. But from I think 1999, they came up with the OWASP top 10 security threats for APIs also, because they learned around that time that hackers were no longer penetrating applications only on the web interface level, but they were now dealing with APIs. So they had to then make API threats more popular, and they came up with OWASP top 10. I think it was in 1999, and that has been revamped in 2023. Last year, they updated that list. So how do we solve for security vulnerabilities, right? There is the 4 key one that was highlighted by in the OWASP 2023 report, the revised list, and they had to do with access control, authentication, which is session management, then inputs, error messaging, and rate limiting and throttling. I'll be going into that briefly in details. But how do we remediate security-based risk on your APIs? Regularly review and update your security measures. So the way, most of these bodies release information is general information on how companies and organizations can safeguard their APIs. The way they are publicly releasing this information, the hackers are also in the public. So as they are seeing ways in which you are, it goes vice versa. Hackers are getting more skillful in intensifying penetrating and attacking your APIs. We as organizations need to also upskill. So as they are devising new ways, we also need to review our security measures as the threats increase, right? So review it, that's point one. Point two, make use of security tools. So as testers, we have a number of them. We have Bob suits, we have scanning tools that we can use to go through our applications. But a ton of them were made available for the web. You can only scan them on the web level. So things like Bob suit, things like OAP Zaps, and then there was Pint. Pint was introduced some years ago, I think within the 2020s, if I'm not wrong, was when Pint was introduced. And Pint is a security tool, testing tool, but for focus on the APIs. So you can integrate, import your Pint collection into your Postman collection directly. And if you have a Postman collection that runs for your application, that you've written tests for your application, you can just integrate that to Pint, and Pint will do a vulnerability test on your APIs. So Pint is spelled Pynt. You can look it up and give it a try. It's very easy to use. I think the prerequisites are you should have a Docker account. I think that's the only key thing there. Just the Docker account, and you are fine, right? So yeah, so that's one tool that is available for testers. Another way we can work on it is developing a central audit and security tool for your APIs. In the key organizations that have been part of or have led, we usually have a checklist. So in this checklist helps us, comes with preset measures that you use to check your APIs. Typically how a checklist is. If you're going for groceries, you write buy milk, buy chin chin, buy this, and each time you pick the item, you check it. So that's what a checklist and an audit can help you do, and you have it periodically, maybe every quarter, at least every quarter. It helps you to stay and check, ensure that your application is up to date and all the necessary information is being checked, right? Okay, so I will just skip that and go to vulnerabilities. I don't know if I'll have time for this. I know I'm out of time, right, Gafar? But I could share the slides and would make use of them. This I crafted this out. It contains the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities on the API level, a brief description of them, and how as software testers we can check them. So the slides will be shared and we can review that. So best practices, prioritize security, make use of security tools, perform penetration testing, ensure you are using the standard protocols, right? The right protocols, and you are following those standards. Then design for scalability. The development team needs to agree, depending on what, nobody wants to build an application that their future and hope is that the application will only service 10 people. Everybody wants to grow. Every organization wants to grow. So putting that in mind, when developing your APIs, you should ensure that it is built to scale. Then error handling and logging. Ensure that you are logging errors wisely, because careless logging of errors can also expose and make your application vulnerable. Then ensure that the right error messages are being returned. So error handling and logging, proper documentation and versioning. We spoke to that briefly. Let your APIs maintain a repository or an inventory of all your company's APIs, such that we're not saying Lagbaja is with this API document and that other person is with that API documentation, and is not in a central place that is protected. Others include early testing. Like, this is a cliche term for in the software community. Test early, both manual and automation tests. Use different forms of testing, including penetration and performance testing. For those who are new to security testing, because it's security testing right now is very big, because hacking and vulnerabilities, most cyber attacks are done on the API level. Recently, is the attacks come through the APIs, not even on the web interface anymore. And they come through broken authentication, through mostly 4 sources. Broken authentication, meaning as a tester, if your application has different user roles, say there's admin functionality and there's a normal user functionality, check that you are logged in as person B. And as person B, you are not seeing the information that only person A should be able to see, right? Those details of the vulnerability and what you can do to check are on this parts of the slide. So because of time, I'll not be able to go into that, but you see those information and data there. Then API rate limiting and throttling. Okay, this is 11:50. I will just end it here, right? There's a list of API do's and don'ts. Do not trust anything. So validate all inputs. Don't trust that because it's checking for invalid email, it means it will check for invalid password, right? Or don't say because I entered 100 naira, and then because it flagged 100 naira, it means it will flag minus 100 naira, right? You need to check. Don't trust anything. Test everything. One of my ogas in the field, is LinkedIn profile says, "In God we trust, every other thing we test." Basically, don't trust anything. Test it, right? And there's so many other do's and don'ts. I'll just skip that. We're supposed to do an activity, but I know my time is fast spent, but I'll be dropping this in the chat. I'll be dropping this link in the chat. Can I copy this? Okay, I don't think I'm able to. All right. So I'll be dropping this as a quick game in the chat, and then I think I would call it a day here because of time. So over to you, Abdul Ghaffar.
Yeah, I think we can quickly take that. It should not take more than 3-5, right?
Yes,
So
yes. So everyone, you can just click on that. It's a quick quiz, API quiz for those who are new to it, for those who are a few years in it. Okay, those who are new to it, you may not be able to take it because you'd need some experience in that, but let's just try it. Let's give it a try. Has anyone opened the link? If you're there, you can just raise a hand or so it will contain 10 questions. All right, great. 10 questions, and you have 10 minutes, but I'll just Gaffer, I think you should continue. So anyone who gets a 10 over 10 by the time you're done can just tell us in the chat.
Somebody's saying it's hot. Okay, no problem. So we can always get to that. We have another quiz, by the way, and there'll be a cash prize for somebody to go with. So Chinaza, you can take it from here.
All right. Thank you, Udeme, for that very educating session. Amongst the many things I picked up, I got to understand how to tackle the challenge of too much data, too much information on the internet as regards API testing, which is by being disciplined enough to know what you want to learn, having a schedule, going for beginner-friendly classes or courses, and sticking to your schedule. All right, at this moment, I'm going to be sharing my screen, so please confirm you can see my screen. Can anybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so for those of us that joined us midway, you're welcome to the 7th edition of Test Drive. And yes, we're on social media, so please do well to follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. The links to each and every one of these social media platforms will be dropped in the chat box. Also, a link to join our Slack community will be dropped in the chat box. So please do well to click and join us. All right, moving forward, we're going to be having our questions and answer session. So if you have any questions based off what our guest speaker spoke about or software testing generally, please feel free to drop your questions in our chat box. Our guest speaker is going to be attending to each and every one of them. So let's drop our questions. Let's drop whatever it is, suggestions, concerns as regards software testing. Are we still receiving any?
Okay, I can see a lot of hands raised.
Okay, maybe I should look at that too.
So I guess we're going to take a couple of questions because of the time, and then we're going to move ahead. I have 4 people raising their hands here. I've got first person here. I've got Oluwaseyi. Do you want to take your question very quickly? The scores for the test are coming in. I'm saying 9 over 10. I'm saying 6 and all of that. Mr. Fatolu, do you want to ask a question? Your hands are raised. By the way, you can drop, as Chinaza mentioned, you can drop your questions.
Yeah, I see some questions in the comment. Can I quickly attend to those?
Yeah, please.
All right. I think there's a John Chima. Please, if there's anyone before John, please let me know. But I'll start with John Chima. Share 2 mentors from which our newbies can learn and practice, learn the practical aspects of API testing. Okay. Okay, give me a minute. I would share some resources on API testing that are free, that cover the basics, right? And they are beginner friendly. So I'll drop links to at least one of that in the chat for Chima. I guess that would be fine, right? Chima confirmed that. Then the next question. Available for every member. Okay. Okay, I think that's kind of Godwin asks, can you speak on VAT issues? Okay, so I know there's only 5 minutes left and I was supposed to take 35 minutes, but in the slides you would see a summary of vulnerability and performance testing. That's what VAPT means for those who are who don't know what that is. Vulnerability and penetration testing. They are principally security based issues that affect APIs. And in the slides that you would get, because of time, we couldn't cover them, we'll be treating the most recent top 10 vulnerabilities that affect APIs as was reported by APIs. So in that slide, you will see what those vulnerabilities are, a brief summary of what they mean, and then how you as a tester can help resolve it. So that's contained in at least 2 pages of the slide. Please, can you give resources that cover advanced API testing? Yes, I'll share that now. I'll share an excellent resource. The way we know Test Automation University, how many of us know Test Automation University and how they are doing a great job at providing software testing related information for free? Yeah, so there is another university called API Sec University. I'll be sharing the links with us. They are yeah, Valentine is also good. If Valentine Velspav, I think that's his surname, is also good. But I'll share resources, don't worry, John. So API Sec University is like a university that deals with everything API security. So if you want advanced, I'll share the link to that also, and you can subscribe to their free courses. I guess those are the 2 questions I have. Wow, somebody scored 10 over 10. Great job.
All right. Any more questions? Does anybody have any more questions? Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. Our guest speaker is ready to answer you, of course.
Hi, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Aziz. First question is, does Udemy have a programming knowledge before switching to software testing? And do I need programming knowledge? Is it a prerequisite to becoming a good software tester?
Okay, so programming knowledge for APIs specifically, right? Is that the question? If you need generally to be a software tester, okay, generally. Yes, you would need, so there are different types of testers, right? Software testers, there are different niche, and further categorization of software testers. Yes, they generally, when you become a software tester, you start as a manual tester, right? You learn test documentation, you learn the different types of testing, you learn the fundamentals at that level. But except you want to remain as a manual tester, if you want to take it a step further to become an automation engineer, right, you need knowledge of programming languages to understand it. So when I say understand it, this is what I mean. There are some people like me, I'm not going to exclude myself, when we were initially transitioning from manual testing to automation, we just crammed the code, right? And we wrote it. The understanding of programming languages will make you know what to write. And that's how you'll be able to excel in coding challenges, right? Rather than just cramming, oh, side.get.this, right? So you need to have, you need to have programming language understanding if, one, you intend to up your game and move to an automation engineer, become an automation engineer, right? Because if you want to use Also, if you want to use automation tools, if it's Selenium, for example, you need to have knowledge of Java. If it's Cypress, you need to have some understanding of JavaScript, right? If it's Appium, is also Java. If it's going to be Selenium with Python, you need to understand how Python works. So you need to have some basic understanding of programming language. That's the answer.
Okay, I can see some of your students here. With them, and somebody said they were a student at Borg Academy. Somebody's also making a comment that getting the first job is always, well, I understand. Um, okay, somebody's asking if Python is a nice language for automation testing.
Yeah, Python is one of the top two easier languages than Java. So if you are new to programming language, I would not advise you to learn Java first. It will come from my head, but I will just be honest with you. You start with either Python or you start with JavaScript. Usually JavaScript, but either Python or JavaScript, that's easier. For me, different people have different
Yeah, and one final question, because of time, we'll have to stop taking questions here. Somebody asked, as a junior QA with a lot to learn and the evolving world of AI, how do you prepare for the future?
Okay, so CAI, because of time also, CAI as not a replacer of your job. CAI as another tool that you can leverage to excel. Another tool that you can leverage and work on and would excel. So don't see AI as a tool that would replace you. Rather, learn and master your use of AI because it's not AI that will take your job. I know a lot of people have seen that. It's those who know how to effectively use AI that will take your job. So don't see AI as an evil. See it as another tool that if you are able to master and excel it, you would become a top um a top player in your industry. So that's what I have to say.
Great, thank you. And that's the right approach because, again, whether you like it or not, these tools are going to continue to spring up day in, day out. So what you can do is to be on top of the situation, know how to use these tools to your own advantage, and before you know it, you can excel and make yourself distinct. So it's about knowing how to use the tools, not necessarily to run away from it or say, "Oh, this is problem." I can see some other hands raised. Godswill. I can see Ismail. Unfortunately, our time is spent. Um, please, what you can do is drop your questions in chat.
I won't ask question. Wait.
I'm sorry, we do not have time on our side. So you can still drop your question in the chat. I'm sure Udeme is still with us. She probably is also going to answer. Maybe once we're done with other things, we can still take a little bit of more questions. We're going to quickly run through that, but we'll have to get into um, other things right away. So thank you very much for that wonderful session with me. I'm sure everybody learns a lot, and this is why we're having so many questions. It's been a very interesting breakdown of everything API testing. There's a lot to learn. And yes, for people asking if we're going to share slides and all of that, yes, we're going to definitely share this for all of our community members. So we're also going to share a full recording of this on our YouTube channel. So as long as you did register before here, if you just joined the Google Meet link directly, you can also drop your email addresses for you to be added. But for people registered before coming here, of course, automatically you get that in your email. You get the things that you're requesting for. You also get in our community on Slack. You can use the link, on the chats box there to join the Slack community. So For those of us that don't know already, Scandium is a no-code test automation solution. So if you have been running away from learning programming, or it's been so hard, well, the good news is that you can actually do test automation without having to write a single line of code with a tool like Scandium. Scandium basically makes it super easy for you to create and maintain automated test cases with ease. On Scandium, inside the same box, you can actually automate testing for your web product, mobile apps, and as well as do effective API testing. This short video that I'm just going to go through now shows you about how to do API testing on Scandium. Of course, we have shown things like doing web testing on Scandium, doing mobile testing with Scandium without code. You can go back to our YouTube channel to see those videos, but this, because it relates to API testing we're talking about today, is what we have for you. Enjoy.
Hi, good morning. This is Scandium API testing page, and I'll be walking us through the features and usage briefly. So right over here, you have the basic details for your test, which name is untitled test by default. You can click on it to edit the name of the test. You have the drop-down here that allows you to toggle between various options for your test method. So this input field right here is where you enter the URL you want to test, and you have the option for categorizing your test into folders right over here. This button allows you to create a new folder, and for the folders you've created, you have various operations you can perform on them. You can rename hard request and hard folder, and for the tests under each folder also you have various operations you can perform on them. So we have the variable button here that allows you to create and manage your global variables. We have the new. This basically just allows you to create a new test. We have the import button that allows you the opportunity to import a postman collection. And then we have the params tab here, we have the authorization tab, we have the header tabs. These are basically for including query parameters into your URL. You have your headers if you want to add headers, and if there's a request body, you have the option here. So if there is none, you have none, and there's support for form data, URL encoded, and raw. Under raw, we have support for JSON, GraphQL, HTML as listed here. So this cookies tab allows you to add cookies to your request if there are any, and you have the assertion tabs and more on that in a minute. So just right below, we have the response window, and this is where your response is being displayed on once you make a response. And you have the button right here. This is where you click to send a request for the server to run the request, and this button save here allows you to save any configuration to your present test. So let's get into a quick demo briefly. So let's make a request to the JSON placeholder URL. So we have our request, we have a method, we have the name, which is untitled. So let's change the name. Let's call it first test here. Okay. Let's send this. So we have the response here. If there are any cookies, you get them here, the headers. And if you've made any assertion, you get your assertion here. And like I said, more of that in a minute. So like I said, this save button saves this test to your project. So once you save, you get this notification and you have your test right here. Okay, so remember to always save your test once you make the request. And for creating variables, all you have to do is click here and you have a list of the variables you've already created. So let's add another one right here. Let's call it another variable. Here. Let's give the value of y. And so once you do this, remember to always save so that this can be updated. So now you have the variable YYY saved under your variables tab. And to access your variables from any input field, all you have to do is basically type the double curly brackets and you have a list of your variables displayed here. So if you click on this, the value for that variable will be substituted in your request. And also you can have the option in the input field. Also, we can have our variables here, and you can choose from anyone you like to make your request. And for the query bodies, like I said, if there's any if it's a post request, for instance, and you want to include a body, you can do that over here. And there's support for GraphQL also. And this is where you include the GraphQL query body. And if there are any variables also, you include that here. So let's go through that quickly. So for the okay. So this is a GraphQL URL, and the method is post by default. And for the query body, let me copy and paste that in a minute. Copy and paste. Uh, so you have your GraphQL body, we have the method, we have the URL, and you can press send. And we have our response here, the headers, the body, and we have all these. And back to our assertions. So what you basically do with assertions is you check for particular values, you check for particular status as it relates to your response. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can check for status codes on your JSON response. You can check for the header. You can check if an header is present. You can check for the body type. You can check for the duration of the request. So for status code, for instance, we want to check if our um, our status code for our request is equal to, let's say, 300. So let's add 300 and let's make a request. So once the response is gotten on your assertion results, you have the assertion results, and this failed because the status is 200 while we are checking for 300. So that's basically what assertion does. Okay, so for the extra feature I really want to show you as it relates to variable. So instead of adding your variables here dynamically, manually, sorry, so you have the option of um, creating a variable from your response. So if you highlight any value from any field in the response, you get this option that allows you to save the text as a variable. So all you have to do is click on this, give it a name. Let's say MMM. Save that. Yeah, and you have your variable saved. So also, if you have a JSON response and you want to save the value, let's assume you want to save this value 826 once our response is gotten. So we are checking for the field count, and if the field count is present, we want to save the value of the field, which is 826, as a variable. So all we have to do also is we highlight the field count, yes, and we have this option that says response.info.count. So the path to that field is automatically generated, and on your next request, if there's a response.info.count, the value for that field will be saved as a variable with a name which you will provide. So you click on this. So let's say save count. Let's create this assertion. So let's make another request, send. And so if we check our variables, so we have save count with the value 826. So that's how to dynamically create variables also from your JSON response. Okay, so back to our test and folders. So to create a folder, like I mentioned, you just ordinarily have to click here, give it any name, you save. And you have your folder here. So, and you can also delete likewise. And you have your folder deleted also. So if you want to move all the tests into a folder, so all you have to do is you make the test active. Yeah, and if assuming I want to move my first test into my Riki2 folder, so I go to add requests and I press save. So I have my first test. moved into my folder. So that would be all. Okay, no, that won't be all. So we have the last option, the that I have not shown you yet. That's importing her Postman collection. So do that by open, save, and we have our collections imported also. So let me go through that again. So let me import your Postman collection. You click on import. This takes you to your directory. You open, you save, and you see you have your test populated here. Yes. And so that will be all basically on the basic features of Scandium API testing. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so that was a video of Scandium in action, demonstrating how Scandium can be used to perform API testing. So moving forward, if you've not followed us on our social media handles, please do well to follow us on social media. The links to our social media handles are in the chat box. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, and follow us on LinkedIn. The rest of the questions that have not been answered yet will be answered right after our next section. So right now we're going to be having our games section. So if you want to join or you want to participate in the games, of course, I want everybody to participate in the games. So you can do that by scanning the QR code you see on my screen, or you can also do that by using the link above the QR code, which is bit.ly/test drive trivia. The link will also be dropped in the chat box, so you can click on the link and join the game session. Don't forget, somebody is going to be winning a cash prize from this session, so put in your best. All right. So Ibrahim, can you take over?
Okay, so let's give people like 2 more minutes to, as Ibrahim shares his screen, let's give people like 2 more minutes to join. You have the link in the chat box already. And let's see who goes away with the cash prize. You can use a thumbs up if you're ready. Please click the link in the chat box to join. Let me join too. Who knows? Maybe I might be lucky this time around. You can join the quiz if you're yet to. We've got 17 people, 19. Okay, it's no longer play. Seems like I need to get ready to. 20 players, 21. Interesting. Again, like Nazar mentioned, we're going to answer the rest of the questions just after this. Okay, 22 players. Okay. Jafar is there for the back. Okay, shall we go then? Or is anybody still trying to join? If you're still trying to join, you want us to wait for you, let us know. Else we'll go ahead now. Okay, good. We're starting. Oh, they may mention this the other time. Wait till she talks of. Okay, let's see. We go again. Stephen, baby tester, cake. Interesting. It's not over. The nice thing about this is before you know it, somebody that's not even on the leaderboard at all can just come up. What's the primary purpose? Okay, the pressure is getting what?
It's getting worse.
Okay, now. Okay, so who won that? Interesting. Who is the winner? Emmy, a round of applause. I know you cannot clap with your hands together, no, but you can use emojis. Who is Emmy? Please come out. Let's know who we're going to be, Lavec.
Mr. Sadiq, good afternoon.
Everybody, Bill Emmy, please. Oh, hello.
Hello,
You can
Mr. Sadiq.
introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. Mr. Jafar, sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Ukul. Sorry, can you hear me?
Emmanuel is the Emmy. You can introduce yourself. Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. Good afternoon. I'm a software poster actually. Hope it's very important to figure out. I don't
Oh,
know if I'm clear.
interesting.
Because yeah, noise, quite noisy. Sorry.
Yeah, we heard you. The more reason to bill you because you work at First Bank. So I think everybody,
I beg
aside the
you.
fact that is getting a cash price, he now also works at First Bank. So Abeg, please feel free to bill him. You can ask for his contact so you can know where and where to bill him, or you can just
Please,
check on
Mr.
the.
Jafar, please.
Okay, okay, no more comments. Okay, congratulations, Evie. Congratulations on winning the cash prize for this edition. Thank you very much for everybody that participated. Olympic is not to win, but to participate. Oluwato is saying that was a great fight. Oluwashaya, that was wonderful. Stephen, thank you very much. We go again was going right again until it did not go anymore again. But thank you for participating. It's a pleasure. Ellie, I'm not sure I pronounced that right. That's nice of you. Thank you. I mean, you were almost there. Baby Tester, Boti, Boatface, Metallo. Thank you very much. Those are the people that made the top 10 on the leaderboard. A round of applause for these guys again. Next time, I'm sure you probably be the one to win the cash prize instead of the money man from First Bank. By the way, you can still bill him. I mean, well, I didn't say that, but then you can. Okay, so now we have some questions. I'm going to hand over back to Naza to see if um, there's any of the questions that have not been answered yet. Naza, you can take it from here.
All right.
By the
Okay.
way, for those that have asked questions, Shinaza, those that have asked questions regarding links, we're just going to post links together. We don't have to go over that again. And we ask questions for the YouTube channel, some short videos, and things like that. We're going to get the links. For other questions, we can see if we can take them.
Okay, so I can see a question here. Is Scandium and Postman same approach in terms of chai assertion? Okay, I think Mr. Sadiq has
API.
answered that already.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay, so I'm
Great.
trying to find if there are any unanswered questions at the moment.
Yes, Udeme mentioned that you can reach out to her on LinkedIn. That's very nice of you. Please reach out to her if you do want to connect channel. You want to ask questions directly. You want mentorship. I know she's very busy, but I'm sure she won't mind. Within what's possible to answer your questions. Thank you very much again. We really appreciate you bearing in mind and sharing so much information with us on this call.
Okay, so join us next month for Test Drive. Test Drive is a monthly event that happens on the last Saturday of every month. So by next month, on the 27th to be precise, we're going to be having another edition of Test Drive. And of course, you can visit our website at app.getscandium.com to try out Scandium. We're so big on feedback, so please share your feedbacks to us. And you can book a demo session call for you and your team. Also, follow us on social media, all our social media handles. You can get the links in the chat box and also engage our posts. So thank you very much for being a part of this edition. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you also got great content and information. Thank you and see you next month.
So you can check the chat box for links again. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. We've got links for you. You want to join the Scandium community on Slack? There's a link there. Follow us on LinkedIn. You have a link there. We have a YouTube playlist that is a no-code test automation course for beginners. You're also going to see the link in the chat box. We have short videos on web testing with Scandium, automation testing videos, and they're very short, all of them less than 10 minutes. So web testing with Scandium, mobile app testing with Scandium, API testing, the one we just saw together on the call. You can see the links. Over there, you can see the link to our YouTube channel, and you can see the link to sign up on Scandium. You can create an account on Scandium today and get started using Scandium for your automation testing endeavors. Thank you very much once again. It's a pleasure to have you here. As always, we look forward to seeing you again next month for another edition of Test Drive. Have a great one.
Thank you, sir.
Hey,